A Year at a Glance 2022. The Sabaragamuwa Affiliated University College, which was affiliated to the University of Sri Jayawardenepura, was promoted to a national university in Sri Lanka on 2nd February 1996. The Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka was added to the list of the national universities as the 12th national university of contemporary Sri Lanka. The vision of the university is to be an internationally acclaimed center of excellence in higher learning, producing dynamic leaders and nation builders to guide the destiny of Sri Lanka. The university celebrated its 25th anniversary in 2021, and the 27th anniversary falls this year. Currently, the university is functioning with 9 faculties: the Faculty of Agricultural Sciences, the Faculty of Applied Sciences, the Faculty of Geomatics, the Faculty of Management Studies, the Faculty of Medicine, the Faculty of Social Sciences and Languages, and the Faculty of Technology. The university offers its graduate qualifications through the Faculty of Graduate Studies. The 9th one being the Faculty of Computing, added to the list in January 2023. All the degree programs offered by the 9 faculties have been designed in line with the vision and the mission of the university and the core values of the respective faculties. We have more than 5,000 students studying across all the disciplines in undergraduate and postgraduate courses. The Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka has been led by 6 Vice Chancellors since 1996 towards the current progress. At present, Professor Udaya Ratnayaka, as the 7th Vice Chancellor of the Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, is leading the university towards its vision. Let us look back, a challenging but rewarding year 2022. The action plan of the university for the year 2022 was focused on 5 major objectives. To achieve excellence in quality of teaching and learning, to enhance the image of the university by enriching research culture, to enhance the social responsibility and harmony for sustainable development, to strengthen the governance and administrative systems for effective service, to improve physical resources, infrastructure, superstructure, and human capital. Teaching and learning. The 23rd General Convocation Ceremony of the University was held on the 24th and 25th of August in the university premises. The first Human Library event, organized by the main library, was held on 28th January. The project aimed at creating a learning platform, promoting active, open and live discussions, enhancing knowledge sharing and a research culture among the university community. The academic staff members of the Department of Economics and Statistics successfully completed the Speechcraft program conducted by Siane Toastmasters Club. A number of workshops related to career development of the students was conducted by the Career Guidance Unit to enhance skills, attitudes, and qualities of the undergraduates. Many MOUs were signed in 2022 to enhance the quality of education by providing industrial experiences to the undergraduates and research collaboration. Research and innovations. The 7th ICMR Conference of the Faculty of Management Studies was held on 16th and 17th November, serving an ideal platform for researchers, academicians, practitioners, and industrialists to share ideas, collaborations, and cooperations in the field of management and social sciences. The 4th International Conference of the Faculty of Agricultural Sciences was held virtually on 26th and 27th January. Undergraduate research symposiums were held in different faculties. The 4th Undergraduate Research Session of the Faculty of Management Studies on 18th November, the 7th Annual Student Symposium of the Faculty of Social Sciences and Languages on 2nd June, and the 1st Undergraduate Research Symposium of the Faculty of Agricultural Sciences on 4th August. The 12th Annual Research Session of the Faculty was held on 6th December. Sri Lanka Journal of Economics, Statistics and Information Management was added to the list of university journals on 28 June. Social responsibility and harmony. The annual religious event, Katina Pinkamara, was graciously held in 2022 to invoke blessings upon the university. A Civil Affairs Officers Diploma course for the senior military officers was initiated in collaboration with the Sri Lanka Army Volunteer Force Training School at Diyathalava. Several training programs were conducted for the farmer communities and school students in 2022. Governance and administrative systems. The Bank of Ceylon entered an exclusive partnership with the university to promote digital payment facilities through the bank's online payment gateway. Online reservation systems were introduced for the reservation of the university guest houses, holiday resort, nest and cabanas. Many workshops were conducted by the Center for Quality Assurance in 2022, mainly the workshop on handling financial procedures and grievances of the university staff and students. The development of physical resources, infrastructures, superstructures. The ceremony of laying of foundation stone for the sewage treatment plant of the university was held on 4th May. The project is being funded by Asian Development Bank. This is a long-felt need and essential development for the university, which caters to thousands of students. Hellabhajan Food Court was opened in order to serve quality Sri Lankan food at subsidized prices for the university community. The new faculty complex of the Faculty of Applied Sciences was declared open, and Innovation Center was added to the faculty complex of the Faculty of Applied Sciences. Some units were newly added to the Faculty of Agricultural Sciences Farm. Currently, large-scale construction projects are underway in the university. We achieved all these success and development in the year 2022 only because of you. Your dedication, enthusiasm, and insight are really inspiring. For a university, it is a matter of pride to have a team like you. Thank you for your contribution towards the success of the university. We are excited to see
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The chief guest, the guest of honor, the keynote speaker, all deans, all directors, heads of the departments, academic staff members, non-academic staff members, and students. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome all of you to this august occasion. It's a momentous event and a milestone as we are here to witness the launching ceremony of LOGOS, the first ever multilingual journal in Sri Lanka, published by the Department of Languages, Faculty of Social Sciences and Languages, Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. The Volume 1, Issue 1, is published as a felicitation journal for Emeritus Professor Rajiv Vijay Singha, in order to commemorate his tremendous contribution to enhancing the quality and standards of the Faculty of Social Sciences and Languages since its inception. To mark the ceremonial beginning of the event, let's proceed with lighting of the traditional royal lamp. To do the honors, I would like to cordially welcome the following dignitaries. Professor Uday Ratnayaka, the Chief Guest and Vice Chancellor of Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, the Guest of Honor, Emeritus Professor Rajiv Vijay Singha, the Keynote Speaker, Professor Chitra Jayatilaka, Dr. Sampath Fernando, Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences and Languages, all Deans of the Faculties, all Directors, Editor-in-Chief of LOGOS, Dr. Mahesh Hapugoda, Dr. Rohan Abevikrama, Head, Department of Languages, Librarian, Registrar, Bursa, Ms. Yashoda Chandrasekara, Assistant Registrar, Faculty of Social Sciences and Languages, one author representing all the authors. Before starting today's proceedings, let's all rise for the national anthem. To deliver the welcome address, I would like to warmly welcome Dr. Sampath Fernando, Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences and Languages.
A very good morning to all of you. The chief guest, Senior Professor Uday Ratnayaka, the Vice Chancellor of Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, the guest of honor, Emeritus Professor Rajiv Vijayasinghe, the keynote speaker, Professor Chitra Jayatilaka, all the deans, directors, heads of the departments, registrar, bursar, librarian, all the professors of the university, invited guests, academic staff members, administrative staff members, non-academic staff members, chief editor and the editorial panel of the journal, all the authors, and my dear students. As the Dean of the Faculty, it's my privilege to have been asked to deliver the welcome speech. I think on behalf of the faculty, so first of all, I would like to welcome the chief guest, Professor Uday Ratnayaka, the Vice Chancellor of Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. I think you are giving a very good leadership for all kinds of activities for the betterment of the departments as well as the faculties in the university. So I would like to welcome to this event, sir. So then I would like to welcome the guest of honor, Emeritus Professor, one of our former deans, Professor Rajiv Vijayasinghe. I would like to welcome you for this event, sir. Then I would like to welcome Professor Chitra Jayatilaka, the keynote speaker. So thank you very much, madam, for coming this event. I would like to welcome you for this particular forum. Then I would like to welcome all my fellow, all my deans, for attending this particular event. So it is an honor for us for your presence here. Then the registrar, bursar, librarian. So you always providing a very good support for us to organize this kind of events. So for this particular event, I would like to welcome you also. Then all the directors, heads of the departments, professors, I would like to welcome you all to this particular event. Then the academic staff members, administrative staff members, I would like to welcome you as well. Then the chief editor and the editorial panel, the people who make the workload of this journal, I would like to welcome you as well. Then the students, I think as far as students are concerned, this is an important event for your life, especially the students who are learning English. I think you can see some great people in your subject, language. I would like to welcome you as well. And there are a few invited guests, including Mr. G.H. Abevira, so one of our alumni members, and he's a dean of Uwavella University. So I would like to welcome all the invited guests for this event. Actually, as the dean of the faculty, I would like to say something regarding the publication culture of our faculty. So I became the dean of the faculty somewhere around 3 years ago. Then the faculty was under Professor Manoj Jariratne for 6 years. He took some necessary actions to start the publication culture or research culture in the faculty. So according to that, we were able to start one faculty journal. After that, I asked all the heads of the department to start some department journals, because the Faculty of Social Science and Languages have a very vast variety. There are a large number of subjects, so when you talk about their identity, so we can categorize them under various clusters. So therefore, I invited all the heads of the departments to take some necessary actions to start some department journals. The Economics and Statistics department took the first step, and they were already able to publish the first issue of their journal. So this is the second event. So this is the third journal of the faculty. So I wish the success of this journal on behalf of the faculty. I think the Department of Languages has various kinds of resource persons. So now our faculty consists of more than 30 PhD holders, so more than 10 of them are professors. So now we can, depending on our resources, I think, sir, as one of former deans, you too can happy about this faculty. I think the Department of Languages will have a good future regarding the publications. There are 2 more departments who are expecting to launch their first journal. I think they'll be able to publish the first issue of their department journals within few months. I think starting journal is not a big problem, but the real problem is how to maintain this one. So how to publish required issues at the proper time. So in order to maintain the required publication, so we are expecting to publish at least 2 issues per year. So if you expect to publish 2 issues per year, then you have to have a good research culture in the faculty. So nowadays we are taking some steps in order to enhance the publication culture in the faculty. I think the faculty will have a good future regarding the publication issue. So around 2 weeks ago, we were able to start some research club with the collaboration of students and the staff. So now we are doing some, we are taking some actions to have some joint publication with the students. So I think in one hand we can enhance the publication culture. On the other hand, we can make a strong relationship between the students and the staff. So that is also very important in order to maintain the student discipline. I think so when we are working together, the students can understand their lecturers. At the meantime, lecturers can understand the students. So then we can minimize the problems between us. So then we can eliminate all sort of bad things in the university. So that is what we are doing nowadays. I think in order to organize this kind of events, so we had some various problems, especially the financial problem. So then finally, the university did their best for the success of this event. At the meantime, I think head of the department, Professor Manoj Jariratne, and Dr. Hapugoda, they had to spend their own money for the success of this one. I think as the Dean of the faculty, I have to appreciate their effort. So finally, I would like to welcome all of you for this particular event. So thank you very much for coming this event. Thank you.
Now, I would like to cordially welcome Senior Professor Udayaratnayaka, the Chief Guest and the Vice Chancellor of Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, to address the gathering.
Emeritus Professor Rajiv Vijayasinghe, the guest of honor, Professor Chitra Jayatilaka, the keynote speaker, and all the distinguished guests, invitees, staff members, and students who are gathered here in this very important event. Very good morning to all of you. First of all, I would like to congratulate and thank the Faculty of Social Sciences and Languages, and especially for the Department of Languages and the editorial team and all others who support their maximum to have this event with the launching of this very important journal, LOGOS. Thank you very much, and also for your success. I would like to congratulate you as Vice Chancellor. This volume is going as a felicitation volume for Professor Rajiv Vijayasinghe. I think this is a kind of a recognition for his commendable service, but I don't think that we can recognize his service by this very minor thing, but at least if we could do something like this also, we can be happy. When we come to the contribution to this university from Professor Rajiv Vijayasinghe, I would like to mention one thing. Last week I received a letter from University Grant Commission. They have taken a decision to inform all the art faculties or humanities faculties in the university system, government university system and the UGC, to change their mode of delivery into English in where and when it's possible for all the degree programs. When I received this letter, I was kind of thinking whether I need to send it to the faculty or not, because it has been introduced in this university nearly 30 years back by the visionary leadership those days, especially by the guidance of Professor Rajiv Vijayasinghe. There is only one thing that I would like to highlight, the contribution that he has made to this university. So the undergraduates who are maybe new to the university or maybe some years here, they should know this. They should know that how far they have think, how innovative the team led by Professor Rajiv Vijayasinghe those days. That is just to mention something about his contribution to the university. But when it's come to his contribution to the country, it is much bigger than that. He is the giant who actually upside down this English education in the country. The English education was only for light class, maybe for Colombo sometimes back in those days. And that was transferred to the periphery, to the villages where there were no even a chance to learn ABC those days, by the innovative and courageous decisions taken by Professor Rajiv Vijay Singh and team. If that was not there, the villages, the kids from villages may not be in their positions now. Someone like me may not be here, because someone like me from a village like Mahiyangana may not be developed at least the courage or confidence up to some extent that I can be kind of confident and come and apply for a position in a university where I have to teach in English. And also, even though I apply for that kind of a position in the university, I might not definitely apply for the position of Vice Chancellor. So, that just to show that the contribution that he has made to the country, especially when it's come to this English education. There are more other things to mention about his character and his courageous decision taken, but I am not going to mention all those things. I just wanted to mention these things to let the students know why this felicitation for Professor Rajiv Vijay Singh. With that, again, congratulating the editorial team and the faculty, and thanking the keynote speaker, Professor Chitra, and also especially thanking Professor Rajiv Vijay Singh being here with us. It's an honor for us, sir. I would like to conclude my speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. As you correctly mentioned, it's truly an honor to be in the presence of the guest of honor of today's event, Emeritus Professor Rajiv Vijay Singh. In order to introduce him to the audience, I would like to cordially welcome Dr. Mahesh Hapagoda, Senior Lecturer in English, Department of Languages.
The chief guest, the guest of honor, the keynote speaker, and all the other dignitaries, academic support staff, and my dear students, most importantly. I assume that there can be three modes when it comes to human relationships or human arrivals and departures. One, there are those that will remain with us for a shorter period of time and disappear. The second, those that will remain with us for some months, years, decades, and then they will go away. Then there's a third category, and the relationships will remain with us forever, till we die. Or sometimes, if you believe in afterlife, they will remain with us even after this life. And I would love to locate my relationship, and many of us, our relationship to Professor Rajiv Vijay Singh, to the third category of immortality. How I met Professor Vijay Singh was also a strange story. That was during the ragging days of the affiliated university times in the 1990s. I heard one day that something unacceptable has happened from student side. And being English students, we were very unhappy about that event because Professor Rajiv, Dr. Rajiv at that time, was the only teacher that we had with a PhD qualification. And we didn't want to lose him. So one morning, sir, he came to the canteen over there, and I thought I should go and talk to him. Not as a, collective member of the student politics, but as in a Nietzschean sense, as a single individual. I went there and made a very, very soft apology. So I am sorry about it. And that was the beginning of that relationship. The relationship which actually lasted now for 2 decades. I wanted to mention this because anything can happen in this world if you are ready to accept that relationship. So that was the end of the beginning of 1990s, the end of 1990s. But the 1990s was a very special decade, sir, because the previous decade, 1980s, you can remember 88, 89, demanded quick educational changes. The famous, the Commission for Youth Unrest suggested radical changes for arts graduates. Why? Because they thought the arts stream was not competitive enough to meet the challenges that were coming with the open market economy, the global economy, the economy that was expanding. So they wanted quick changes, and that is where the affiliated university came into spotlight. And remember that these affiliated university colleges were also criticized by many. And still I think some of you may have that criticism. If I go for a gross generalization compared to others, the arts graduates at that time were less technical and more passionate about social changes because they were sensitive about some of the issues that were unfolding at that time. So, 88-89 was a tragic event. I can remember Professor Rajiv was saying that this cannot happen. He was determined such tragic event not to happen once more in this land. And that was his devotion. That's where he comes into this scene. Affiliated universities were to change the trajectory of arts education forever. The kind of humanities education that we experienced in Sabaragamuwa was a completely different dose. Even the teachers took a long time to adjust to this newness. Professor Rajiv was a stalwart in changing the humanities education at Sabaragamuwa by modernizing the English education at that time. He introduced an English degree for non-A-level students, those who did not have A-level English as a prerequisite for an English degree. That was a massive change at that time. He was brave, very brave, and radical enough to take that decision. And we came, and I'm addressing you here, standing here, in this podium, because of that change, because of that radical step. And understandably, the Sri Lankan English-speaking elites criticized this, naturally. And I should also mention here, Professor Dayananda Somasundar also supported this change at that time as the Vice Chancellor. We should not forget that. And he always wanted, together with Professor Rajiva, he wanted globally mobilizable degree holders from Sabaragamuwa. And that was our mission. And that was the mission of our faculty. Other than the mainstream language course, the main components introduced by that time was critical thinking, scientific thinking, personality development, current affairs, library skills, mathematics for arts graduates, IT literacy, and co-English curriculum or co-English language, which were credited compulsory courses from 1990s. These are compulsory. This is what the Vice Chancellor made that reference, because they were compulsory. Without it, you fail, you go home. And these changes were brought about to this land without any financial assistance from the World Bank. We didn't spend a single rupee, I hope. Coming back to Professor Vijay Singha, he was born in the year of 1954 to a wealthy and educated family in Colombo. He was the youngest child of Mr. Sam Vijay Singha, the former Secretary General of Parliament, and Mukta Vikramasinghe Vijay Singha, daughter of Mr. Cyril Vikramasinghe, who was a leading civil servant at that time. Young Vijay Singha was a bright student in St. Thomas's College, Mount Lavinia. Then he won an open exhibition in classics to University College, Oxford, when he was 16. After his first degree, which also led to an MA in 1977, he moved to Corpus Christi College, Oxford, as an E.K. Chambers student and obtained a B.Phil degree in English, followed by a PhD on the subject of, very interesting, woman and marriage in the early Victorian novel, which was later published by the University Press of America. He is known as a writer in the post-colonial world. My students would be interested in this, whose writings can be located within the broader canon of Sri Lankan literature. His fictional works, Servants, 1995, was translated to Italian and was awarded the Gratian Prize in 1994. Professor Vijay Singha authored An English Education, 1996, Act of Faith, 1985, Days of Despair, 1989, and Lady Hippopotamus, 1991. As an author, he's best known within the sphere of Sri Lankan writing in English and has produced several literary anthologies in that genre. He has marked his presence in education, active politics, literature, diplomacy, as well as in his critical thinking and writing. Still, you can log on to his blog, Lakmahal and Rajiv Vijay Singha blogspot. One key milestone in his political career that he was appointed as a State Minister of Higher Education. Professor Vijay Singha was the Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences and Languages. He was instrumental in coordinating the affiliated University College English Diploma program in the 1990s. Similarly, popular pre-university, you know this, pre-university general English language training, GELT, course that aimed to improve English language skills of university entrants was also one of his brainchilds. He coordinated the English language program for Military Academy Diatalava and similar program for the new entrants in the Southeastern University and many other courses. Before he joined Sabaragamuwa, he briefly taught at Peradeniya and resigned from his position in protest of growing authoritarianism of the Jayachavardhan regime in early 1980s. He joined Sri Javardhanapura University and worked for a shorter period also there before starting his career as a full-time academic in the Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. Professor Vijay Singha has anthologized poetry and short fiction, noted for collections such as A Selection of English Poetry, Bridging Connections, Sri Lankan Short Stories, 2007, a selection of modern Sri Lankan poetry in English 2006, and selection of modern Sri Lankan short stories in English 2005, which he co-authored with Ms. Dinali Fernando. He has also served in the editorial panel of the English Writers Cooperative, which he assisted the formation of as a forum of promoting the work of Sri Lankan writers and in binding up discourse of producing and reception. The works Richard de Soisa, His Life, Some Work, A Death, and The Limits of Love 2005 were memoirs that mark Professor Rajiva's close friendship with Richard de Soisa, one of the controversial characters in the 1980s. And there are many things that I can say about him, but I'll stop here. He's a successful teacher as far as we are concerned, because he could produce hundreds of students who could carry his legacy forward. He's a successful administrator because some of the changes that he pioneered are still producing positive results. We are benefiting from them. He's a successful author because what he has written are still impactful, resonating in our ears. Most of all, he's a remarkable human being, human soul, because we all love him. In a way, I am privileged to be the editor-in-chief of this journal, which is devoted to Professor Rajiv Vijayasinghe, the teacher, the supervisor, and the mentor, not only for me, for many of us here for the last 2 decades or so. It's with much gratitude and honor that we present this issue of Logos as a felicitation volume for Professor Rajiv Vijayasinghe. I'm also delighted and excited to introduce Professor Rajiv Vijayasinghe to this wonderful occasion. Over to you, sir.
Vice Chancellor, my former colleagues, or should I say my present colleagues, because I think we're still striving to work together in different ways, all the other officials who are here, as well as the students, who are, of course, the lifeblood of a university. I should thank the Vice Chancellor and Dr. Hapugoda for their tremendously kind remarks. Mr. Hapugoda has got used to introducing me on various occasions, and somehow he keeps adding to what he sees as the list of my achievements, which I am very flattered by, though I hope none of you actually felt a bit sleepy in the course of his very complimentary oration. But of course, in addition to thanks, I must congratulate you on this latest initiative. And I am deeply honored by this gesture on the part of the department, the faculty, and the university. It was also very thoughtful of you to have invited Dr. Chitra Jayatillaka to deliver the keynote address today, since she represents what is best about what I consider my other university, the University of Sri Jayewardenepura. I cannot take credit for her achievements, though she too would be the first to recognize that had it not been for the system I put in place at that university, way back in 1992, she would not be here today. Her achievements are ample testimonial, as are those of your staff here, to the validity of our decision then to open up English degrees to those who had not done English for the advanced levels. And though I did not stay long at that university, I was lucky in that just as in this university, I was able to recruit excellent staff who took forward those ideas, and as with Chitra and her current promotion of Sri Lankan drama in English, which no other university had thought of, she has developed new ideas on similar lines. And that's what we need. Not simply, I hope, taking forward some of my ideas, but developing new ideas yourselves. And for that, I am immensely proud of what I managed to do at that university and this one, and of the students who have taken things forward. But with regard to the University of Peradeniya, where I began my teaching career way back in 1990, since I made no mark at all, I cannot take pride in my brief stint there. Perhaps I resigned prematurely, but even had I stayed on, I don't think I would have achieved much, since one of the brightest stars in the English academic firmament, Professor Arjuna Parakrama, who is very different from me in his approach, but who shares a similar commitment to students and to productive change, has confessed himself beaten by the place. Having long aspired to the chair there, he remarked after he had got it that it was even worse than Colombo. Be that as it may, the point is that though there are exceptions at both places, those institutions are hidebound in moribund traditions, and like Pope's Addison, simply sit attentive to their own applause. They don't really care that they have achieved nothing really, with some exceptions from Colombo, in the last 30 years. This is very different from the University of Sri Jawadnapura, which Professor Arjuna Alivihara, the best UGC chairman to date, although he was a Peradeniya man, who presided over the changes that Dr. Hapagoda referred to following the Youth Commission report. He described Jawadnapura soon after I joined it as the cutting edge of the university system. Much has been achieved there, and much at this university. But I come here now at a time when there is a requirement of much more if this country is ever to return to the leading position it had when the Prime Minister of Singapore hoped that he could bring that country to our level. And I fear that the current project to improve things in the university system, more money poured down the drain to repeat what has been done again and again from the year 2000 onward, when the irksome IRC project first reared its head, money that future bankrupted generations will have to pay, will achieve very little. And I still recall someone who's supposed to be a leading academic light in the UGC recommending buying enormous amounts of expensive equipment. And when I said, this is ridiculous, he said, the World Bank will pay. And I said, the World Bank will not pay. We will pay. And he didn't know this. And this is what has happened. The World Bank believes not only in lending us enormous amounts of money, but in pretending that they are doing us a favor. They are not doing us a favor at all. We are doing them a favor, because that is how their salaries get paid, by lending more and more to us and demanding a return at interest. And if Professor Senavagan Bandaranayake did not realize this, no wonder so many people think World Bank money is money to throw away and to bankrupt future generations. And when this particular project succeeds at 10%, which is all these projects have done, it will then allow the World Bank and what I call its cookie-cutting educationists to embark on yet another expensive project. Just count the number of projects to improve university, with much more money having to be paid back by those who lack the skills to develop the country productively. And as a consequence, they try to get away as soon as possible. The brain drain is now astonishing. Perhaps because of the comfort zone that these World Bank projects have engendered, money for jam, there is nothing of the imaginative radicalism that characterized the period when Arjuna Alivihara was in charge. So I feel that while what I think of as both my institutions try to move forward, they also work now in grooves and do not promote the seminal change which we need. This is particularly important with regard to English, the downgrading of which, as you know, Lee Kuan Yew thought the principal reason for our downfall. And that we get worse and worse was brought home to me forcefully when a former senior public servant, now engaged in teaching at higher levels, and thankfully where he does not have to condone corruption, which I used to scold him for having done, called to tell me that he was in despair about the incapacity of one of the students at one of the premier institutes of management to even write correctly. Subject-verb agreement, he said sadly, was unknown to them. I too fear, having marked papers recently for your potentially useful MA course in English and Education, which takes up what I tried to do a quarter of a century ago, I'm horrified by the English usage of some of those supposed to have degrees in English. Not, I hasten to add, many from this university, but still enough to worry me. That set me thinking about what might have been. And I make no apologies that what I have to say relates to my own initiatives. For though I can be happy about what I began in the university sector, for that has continued, with many more students able to obtain degrees in English as compared to when it was confined to a charmed circle coming from elite urban schools, I have to confess that my efforts in other areas, secondary education and vocational training, have by and large failed. The step-by-step teaching of English envisioned in the curriculum I introduced when I chaired the Academic Affairs Board of the National Institute of Education was promptly abolished when a new chairman was appointed following a change of government in 2005. He cannot be blamed for the mess. He was not a very bright man, except for his failure to impose coherence. But when the dead souls of the NIE took charge, you may not know about dead souls, characters created to get money for their creators. When these dead souls of the NIE took charge and appointed to advisory positions their incompetent friends, it is interesting that neither Chitra nor people from this university ever are called upon to give advice to the NIE. And indeed, the only person they have taken from Jayawardhanapura is the exception that proves the rule, the one person there who is not as dynamic as Chitra and her other wonderful staff. Anyway, we had a spate of silly books which have completely failed to ensure understanding of basic structures in English. And no one criticizes these. That's what I don't understand. And I'll explain what I think you should do for that. It is true that English medium continues still in government schools, but ever since the current president, who for some reason had an animosity to English medium, refused to allow me to continue to coordinate the program. He claimed that he wanted me to do it full time, but as I asked his secretary, who giggled when I said, was anyone appointed full time when I was got rid of? No. Because he belongs to that elite, I'm sorry to say this, which really doesn't like rural kids doing well. It's very simple. It's like Jaya Jayawardena, people blame Bandaranaike, but it was Jaya Jayawardena who abolished English medium education. Just as Mr. Kannangara had started English medium central schools, the first great step to introduce English outside the charm circle in the 30s. 6 years later, Jaya Jayawardena made Sinhala medium and English and Tamil medium compulsory. There's an extraordinary speech of his, which people don't know, people who blame Bandaranaike. Bandaranaike's Sinhala only act was a bit of a silly act. But if you read it, it's one sentence. That's how acts were done in 1956. But Jayawardena, when he abolished English medium, made a speech in which he said, this country has two separate nations. Those who speak Sinhala and Tamil, and those who speak English. And so by destroying English medium, he stopped the Sinhalese and Tamils talking to each other, which created what we really know is the dichotomy within this country. And when I started at Sabaragamuwa and made English compulsory and the Sinhala students complained, I said, well, what do we do with the Tamil students? They are intelligent, they will study in English medium and they will do well in life. You will study in Sinhala medium and the rest of your lives will be miserable. Fortunately, the student union accepted my argument, and within 3 months, the Sinhalese and Tamil students were talking together in English and attacking me as dean. That is what students do, no? And now they could get together. Okay, well, that didn't matter, right? Okay, so, as I said, the current president actually downgraded the program and standards declined, and in place of the systematic training and the excellent textbooks I had initiated, the incompetence of the ministry and the National Institute of Education holds sway. Again, study the books they produced. Supposedly English medium. What Lalit Vijayanathan described as subject-verb agreement is not something the English medium education, the National Institute of Education, think is serious. I mean, the work is so funny. As for vocational training, the system I put in place to offer English courses at all levels was abandoned. And while ministers bleat about the need for more English, they do nothing constructive about it. And I simply invite you to just look over the last 3 months at what the once and future Minister of Education, about the 10th time he has this portfolio, says about the need for English. Lots of speeches, not one constructive measure. Not one. From the moment he became Minister of Education, and he has been that several times, nothing constructive has ever been done. I have no doubt that nothing will be done to make things better. But it might help if the universities at least took these problems seriously and addressed themselves to identifying issues and suggesting remedies. This was something I proposed when I was briefly State Minister of Higher Education. And this is the area I want you to think of much. That there should be coherent research done by each university, instead of what we now have, projects chosen at random, which cannot then be connected together to improve current practice in different fields. I wonder now how many vice chancellors then or now have any memory of what I proposed way back in 2015. I was only minister for a month, but I think I generated more ideas in that month than any minister has done since. But no one is interested in ideas, so why bother? I mean, when you have Kabir Hashim as Minister of Higher Education, all you can do is cry. All he did when I resigned was send his relations round to the ministry to take all the vehicles that we had. When I was minister, I was told I could have 14 vehicles. SB had 14. He was my predecessor. And I said, I don't need 14, I need 1. Then I was scolded by my driver who said, you must have 2. What if one breaks down? So I gave him. The other 12 all went to Kabir Hashim's relations. He had aunts and sisters-in-law and nieces and all sorts of relations, all of whom were employed in his private office and given vehicles. Did you know that a minister has 5 coordinating secretaries, all of whom are entitled to vehicles at government expense? My coordinating secretaries got annoyed with me because I said the main one can have 1 because he comes from Kegon. All the rest of you share 1 between you. They were not very pleased. But the work was done because they were meant to be in my office, not doing the shopping for the minister's relations. Anyway, so what I proposed, and please listen, I'm sorry, I tell you anecdotes which are entertaining, but you can forget those. What I proposed is there should be concerted study of problems in the divisional secretariats that form the catchment area of each university. And please do this for the future. So these could contribute to a development plan which the universities could propose to authorities. Heaven knows that this is needed when currently development funds are devoted to enhancing political popularity, not to development. You know what development funds are used for. But what you need is a plan that universities can do. Well, let's say you look at Imbulpe. Your economic students, and with Professor Priyanath here, I think you could organize a wonderful study of what are the economic development needs of Imbulpe. Pick about 4 divisional secretariats nearby. Get your students to do not a research project, because the research project now a dead end in itself. Put it together, get the sociologists to go and look at the poverty levels and the need to alleviate those. Don't just say these are the poverty levels. Look and see what is the employment that could be generated in that particular area. Get the geographers to look and see what are the threats that the geographical area shows. Get the English students to go and study what is being done in the different schools in Imbulpe. What are the English teachers they have? Do they go for tuition? And so on. Very simple. And then let the faculty of this university, the arts faculty, produce a development plan for Imbulpe. I'm using Imbulpe, but I think you all can handle 4 divisions easily. Ditto Uvavellas. They can do the same. And even Javodnapura could explore some of the rural areas. I'm sure your students come from Kalutura and so on. So very, very poor areas, okay? Parts of the western province. So there should be university development plans because no one else is doing development plans on the level that I am recommending. And that is where the money should be plowed. Because there's plenty of money. You look at the development budget that every individual MP gets. What does it go on? Political popularity. When on MP I had what is called personal funds. I put up a couple of buildings, one in a school, the other in a temple. The latter was a half-broken temple which Pavitra Vanyarachi, a great character for starting things which never end, including canonization of first Chandrika and then Mahinda and now Ranil. It's an endless process. This is God. No, that's not God, this is God. No, that's not God, this is God. I wonder who comes next. Anyway, there was this decrepit building, which was used for nothing. Right? Set it up. But many people were giving their money for chairs for Maranadhara societies. Development funds. Development funds should be invested in what produces results for the people, not in chairs for dead people. I told you dead souls. Okay, so that's one. I also tried when I was minister to address coherently another problem, though to my horror no one else seems to consider it a problem. I refer to the massive waste imposed by our education system. At its most obvious, whereas in other countries there is seamless movement from one level to another. Term ends in this month, the new term begins 2-3 months later, that's the most. In England, there are summer holidays, so it's 2 months. In Singapore and places, it's 1 month. We call a halt after the ordinary level examination. Imagine children going chug, 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 chug in a train and suddenly stopping there? You have experienced it in a train, no? You have to stay in a station for hours and hours and you don't know what is happening. That happens to our children after the O-level. But they can't just stay in the train. So the parents have to find things for them to do. And what do the parents do? They send them to tuition. In fact, when Tara Demel tried to have a seamless progress, the tuition industry screamed and shouted at her. And Mahinda Rajapaksa promptly reverted to the old system. And the tuition industry, which contributes to political campaigns, because they make a lot of money, was very happy. December to March, nothing happens. In fact, March is in fact June generally, after the O-levels. So our youngsters lose a minimum of 4 months of their lives, the more often it is 6. Worse, the practice of learning in school is totally decimated. A process that had begun earlier with tuition classes from childhood. Because people go to tuition from childhood. South Korea, by the way, which developed very quickly, banned private tuition. Just banned it. Can you imagine our jokers banning private tuition? Kohinda salli labenne. But now parents have no choice after O-level except tuition to keep children gainfully or not gainfully, because that's also the difficult age of incipient sexuality. No? So when students go off to private tuition, naturally they want to have fun. They don't want to by heart whatever the private tuition master dictates to them. Then there is massive waste after the advanced level exam. And some universities have tried to start soon after results are released. This is exceptional, and in any case the release of the results only occurs months after the examination. So now, this needs to be addressed by reducing the delay. It can easily be done. But until that happens, there should be measures to use the time productively with, for instance, remedial courses in English and mathematics in divisional centers in the 3 months after the ordinary level. With basic core courses such as any modern university system offers in the period after the advanced level. What I'm going to mention, critical thinking, bilingualism. Bilingualism, by the way, is not only a system of understanding 2 languages, it is also a way of refining your thinking skills. Because when you start to translate, you begin to analyze meaning more carefully than if you are monolingual. Okay? Communication skills, international awareness. In fact, I actually proposed this when I was State Minister of Higher Education, to set up in every divisional secretariat learning centers where all the children who got no English in schools could come to do English, where all the people who had no English would come for English after advanced levels and also for critical thinking. But Mr. Hashim was not interested. The cabinet paper was suppressed. Okay? Interestingly, I was told by one of the MA students on your course who works for the American Center that she plans a critical thinking conference early next week, which suggests that there is awareness of the problem. Coincidentally, too, in the articles I am now writing about those I have worked with in the university system, I have a series on Tuesdays about educational reforms, and the staff for the last few weeks has been Professor Manoj Aryaratna, right, who first taught Sinhala here, but then did much else. But I used the opportunity to talk about the core course, as why we introduced Sinhala, and why Professor Manoj told me that I should not only introduce Sinhala for Tamil students and Tamil for Sinhala students, but I should introduce writing skills in Sinhala for Sinhala students because they didn't learn to write in schools. And he and Sunil Salavi and Priyanka, you did Sinhala or was it Hindi? Sinhala, yeah. They did a great job in trying to improve the writing skills of students, as did our Tamil students, teachers in Tamil. And so I owe them much, because although, as I said, I started this program, I had enormous support from my staff. Manoj in particular at that stage insisted on this. So, those articles students may like to read. And because at my age, I confused Tuesday and Thursday. Manoj didn't appear yesterday, he will appear tomorrow. In the last series about him and all the work we did together. And it was his starting on work at Sabaragamuwa in 1997 that actually led to what he now is the leading figure in Sri Lanka about translation studies. You know, Sabaragamuwa was one of the 3 universities that was selected for this, and he's probably the leading figure in it. Okay. Right. And I have been exploring in those articles the range of core courses we introduced, which you mentioned, which this university first made compulsory in students for degrees, way back in 1997. But sadly, I believe that particular component was dropped from your curriculum when Sabaragamuwa also forgot the innovations its first Vice-Chancellor, Professor Somathunanda, initiated. You know, Professor Somathunanda and I had our differences, but I always pay tribute, as Mr. Hapagoda noted, to his enormous imaginativeness. He, like many other politicians who did a great job to begin with, you can imagine whom I'm speaking about, was later destroyed by family connections, who thought that making money was more important than his work. But as a thinker, he was remarkable. And what he did to set up this university really deserves our gratitude, and I'm glad you mentioned that. But you will all remember how the University Grants Commission tried over many years to destroy the 3 years honours degree that he had initiated. And now finally they succeeded when conservatism briefly held sway here. I must say I have to congratulate this university on your string of vice-chancellors, all of whom, with one notable exception, have been remarkably thoughtful people. And I'm not saying this only because Professor Ratnayaka was so nice about me, but people who have met him apart from me say that he thinks, as did Professor Udavatta before him, earlier. And you've been very lucky in vice-chancellors, generally. Okay. So we too waste the resource of the nation, make no effort to provide essentials for life to our students, working instead to a notion of academia that the world has long abandoned. Those 4-year honours degrees serve you no purpose in your futures. They are designed to produce more academics. And since there are no jobs for more academics, they all go abroad. Whereas what you need is a practically oriented degree that is largely composed of thinking skills with obviously certain levels of knowledge in the subject you're doing. Yeah? But let me move to some practical ideas, for I should not go on for too long, based on something I noticed in the latest grade 11 English textbook. This at least is not full of misprints as had been the case earlier, but it continues the practice of being one of a set of 3 books, all expensively produced. Commissions, 3 books means 3 sets of commissions. A pupil's book, a workbook, and a teacher's guide. In other countries, there's just the 1 book. But those other countries have not developed to a fine art the rent-seeking that our system has engendered. The last chapter is about choices in life and tells you what 5 students want to do. All of them talk about what they wish to do at university. You see, the NIE believes that there is no future except university. And therefore, what they will study for their advanced levels. There are 3 Sinhalese and 1 Muslim and 1 Tamil, because the NIE is very good at what I would call a traditional view of diversity. 3 Sinhalese, 1 Muslim, 1 Tamil. And they come from Batticaloa and Kurunegala and Galle and Anuradhapura and Nuwara. Superb diversity from the perspective of the NIE, not from the perspective of Sri Lanka, because rural students do not figure here. Rural students have no place in the thinking of the NIE. Even worse is the fact that there is no conception of the real choices students in this country have to make, and no effort is made to introduce them to vocational training. And the minister bleats about this, but does nothing about it. I don't think he's even looked at the textbooks. Perhaps these and other such books would be suitable subjects for research for student projects at universities. And that, I would suggest to your head of the Department of Languages, is what you should get your students to do, not those, piece by piece research about the number of people who can speak English in a remote village in Paduvasnuwara. Okay? Get them to concentrate on one area. Do a comprehensive study. Teacher numbers, training of teachers, number of hours English is delivered, attendance at advanced level English classes. Many years ago I proposed when I was here that the Ministry of Education should hand over schools to be managed by universities and the military academy in Diyatala. Because I knew then that a university could manage a school and make sure the schooling was good enough for their children. I still remember a very able lecturer called Mr. Jasingha went off to Colombo because he had to think of his children's schooling. Before that, Mrs. Vattav. You know, all of them went because the schools in this place were useless. And it would be so easy. The only people who sent their children to local schools were the German lecturer and his very sophisticated wife. But if we had taken over that school way back in 1997, we would have produced a superb education in English medium for the children of all the lecturers here and for the village children also. No, Minister of Education won't allow such things. But so easy to do. You know, every university adopts a school. Particularly true of the rural universities, particularly true of Uvavallassa, Ruhuna here. Okay. But as I said, a class of English students could divide the work up, and having gone to several schools in a designated area, found out how much students have learnt, both of English and what appear to the life skills drilled into them in almost all lessons. What they think of the reading text and the poetry, and above all, what they actually need for their students, for their futures. It should be student-centered analysis. Surely the students do not need flatulent knowledge already done to death in history books from grade 1 onwards about kings who built tanks. This is a favorite subject of the National Institute of Education. But nowhere have I found any reference to why tanks are so special. Do you know why tanks are so special? What is so important about the tanks that were developed in Anuradhapura, which they talk about endlessly, in every possible source within the NI, or Polonnaru? Can all you students who studied all this, do you remember your history books? Do you remember? And why are tanks so special? Nobody knows. Mr. Hapagoda, our primary thinker. Shanti? Nobody can tell me why tanks are so special. Very interesting, man. This is what I mean. Tanks are wonderful. They're a brilliant innovation. And the point is, they are unique, almost unique. Because every other early agricultural civilization, which was the fountainhead of creativity before the Greeks popped up and did different things, is based on river valley civilizations inundated by rivers. You may have canals, but you don't need to store water. That is what is unique. And I still remember when I translated the text for social studies in 2000, I introduced this. There's a whole section on tanks, there always is. And I said, you know, this is very special because it shows how our kings thought. But I also said, compare these with other places, river valley civilizations. And I still remember how pleased I was when I was down in Hambantota, and one of the teachers who had bravely started English media told me that his students had said to him after the invasion of Iraq that Iraq was a river valley civilization. I was so touched, because that is what I want students to be doing. To learn enough and to think. But those opportunities are not given by the tanks. Because what does education minister do? They give you knowledge done to death in history textbooks from grade 1 onwards about kings who built tanks, including Akbar I and Akbar II. Akbar I and Akbar II are particular favorites of the National Institute of Education. And when I told them once ages ago, why have you not mentioned Elara? No, we only talk about important kings. I said, yes, Akbar I. Do any of you know about Akbar I? There's no reason why you should. Because I'm sure there are some people who know, but even Wikipedia has nothing about him. Right? There's hardly nothing about the former except that he reigned for 34 years in the 6th century and was succeeded by his nephew. The Wikipedia entry for Akbar II has different rates for his reign. But probably it is considered essential for everybody in this country to know in the 21st century that he built the Kantale and Giritale tanks. An achievement that we should know this, but I don't think anyone ever remembers it. Did any of you remember it? And I only know it because I read it last week. Perhaps you too will remember that, even if you forget everything else I said, since that, it seems, is what our current administrators want our students to know. The achievements are Akbo 1 and Akbo 2. Actually, they don't mention Kantale or Giritale, which are interesting tanks in this particular chapter. It's just, our kings built tanks. Akbo 1 and Akbo 2 and Datusena and Mahasen and Parakambahu, of course. Yeah. Okay, but now I'm going to come to the meat of my talk, which is a suggestion that those who have studied English and here at Jawadnapura set up a ginger group to urge reforms in the field. You can easily do it. There are several products of the initiatives of the 90s who have done great jobs wherever they are. And in addition to all of you, let me mention Dean Abeviro at Uvavellassa, who is here today and continues to innovate remarkably. And Nandana Balasure, who did so much for English at the Department of Technical Education and Training. Because he kept alive the basic English courses that I'd started. And it'd be very simple now for you, through your external departments, to start English courses for students who leave school. Do you have an external department, or is it the Faculty of Graduate Studies? You used to have an external, separate. Who runs it now? Who is in charge? Mr.? He runs it. So he's a very imaginative man. Maybe you and he can get together and just set up courses for people who leave school and afterwards, centered in schools. And if you arrange certificates from this university, and Uvavellassa does the same, and Jawadnapura does the same, it will become a national certificate. And the syllabuses are there, the books are there. There's a book called Building Career Skills, which is available at Godagays for the 3 months after O-level. There's Advancing Career Skills for people who are a bit better. There's Developing Career Skills for people who are a bit better, and there's Advancing Career Skills for post-A-level. And that is full of additional skills as well. They all have thinking skills. And it's a 3-month course. Students would flock. They will pay to come. So it can be self-financing. You don't have to go begging for the World Bank for funds. But you can ask the World Bank. I mean, ask them, they won't give it. But put it on record that this is a real support to education. And of course, one of the reasons it's important is because in other countries, universities work in schools to prepare the ground for higher education. They do mentoring. And if you all don't have to do the teaching, you can find school teachers. That's what your MA in English and education is about. Set up people who will come and teach and mentor them. Okay? There's Shashikala Asela, who heads the Department of English at Kalani, to name just a few. There are lots more. You can make suggestions as to curriculum reform, production of common materials, the introduction of community service centers to provide services to students in deprived areas. You can produce a newsletter about best practices in the field to disseminate, for instance, among the teachers who are on your training programs. So while I'm grateful for this fellowship, an honor I associate with venerable old age, and I'm knocking on the threshold, so not quite 70, I soon shall be, it is a seal on my academic career. But having, in a sense, abandoned academic approaches half a life ago, I would also suggest that an even more fitting tribute to me, to Ms. Nagasundaram, whom many of you know well, who was such a wonderful teacher at Jawadnapura, to Dinali Fernanda, who also taught at Jawadnapura and used to come and visit here, that band of excellent teachers, okay? An even more tribute would be aids to action. And I believe several of you can help to get going. It needs to be done soon, because we are on the verge of total collapse. And I hope that is what most of you would like to be remembered for. And I have no doubt that many of you can do it. Thank you.
After that informative and thought-provoking speech, let's move on to another significant moment in today's program, the launch of the virtual version of LOGOS. To do the honors, I would like to cordially welcome Senior Professor Deratnayaka, the Chief Guest and the Vice Chancellor of Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. He will be accompanied by the Editor-in-Chief of LOGOS, Dr. Mahesh Hapakoda. Please go near the smartboard, sir. Thank you, sir. From this moment onwards, the virtual version of LOGOS is accessible to any of you who wish to seek new information in language-related research. So I invite all of you to refer to LOGOS for your study purposes. The time has come for us to listen to the keynote address of today's event, which will be delivered by Professor Chitra Jayatilaka. In order to introduce her to the audience, let me warmly welcome Ms. Ashani Maxworth, Lecturer in English, Department of English Language Teaching.
Good day to everybody, and thank you very much, Ms. Sajani. I have been tasked with introducing the keynote speaker for the day, and I'm very honored to welcome and introduce this very important speaker, Professor Chitra Jayatilaka. While Professor Jayatilaka may be more of an appropriate of an address, ma'am, for an occasion such as this, I would like to refer to you in our usual address, which is Professor Chitra, as everybody has been doing till now. I hope that's okay. Professor Chitra is a professor attached to the Department of English and Linguistics of University of Sri Jayawardenepura, from where she also obtained her bachelor's. And she went on to complete 2 master's programs, one in linguistics, I believe, at the University of Kelaniya, and the other in TESOL, that is teaching English as a second language at the Postgraduate Institute of English. And in fact, I believe she was also the very first candidate to earn an MA from PGIE. And since then, I think many of us in the same field have followed in her footsteps, including our very own head of the department, Dr. Rohan. And speaking a little bit more about her academic career, she read for her PhD in English at University of Kiel, of the United Kingdom. And she has published extensively, of course, and among her many research interests are language and culture studies, second language acquisition, teaching English as a second language, and as Professor Rajiv also said more interestingly, post-colonial literature and theatre. In fact, her PhD research is also was also done on biopolitics and post-colonial theatre. With over 2 decades, I believe, I'm not sure if it's close to 3 decades, of teaching experience at the Department of English and Linguistics of the University of Sri Jayawardenepura, Professor Chitra has also served in many academic as well as administrative posts at the university, including being the head of the department. And apart from teaching at USJP, I believe she has also taught at NIE as well as SLIET and as well as PGIE, where I also quite a while ago had the opportunity of being one of her students. So ma'am, it is a great pleasure to welcome you to Sabaragamuwa, and I would like to hereby invite you to deliver the keynote address.
Thank you very much, Ashani, for your introduction. Of course, just one correction, I have not taught at the NIE, but I have contributed in certain ways, maybe at workshops and other things. Right? Okay, thank you. Good morning. Good morning to you all. Dear Vice Chancellor, the chief guest of the event, the guest of honor, Professor Rajya Vijay Singha, Dr. Dean of the Faculty of Human Social Sciences, and Dr. Hapugoda, Editor-in-Chief of the LOGOS, heads of the departments and other deans of the faculties, professors, academics, the librarian, academics and non-academics staff members, dear students, and other distinguished guests. I would like to first thank you all, especially the editorial team of LOGOS, for inviting me to be here as the keynote speaker at such a milestone for the Department of Languages of the University of Sabaragamuwa. I feel I'm honored and it's a pleasure to be here. And first of all, I must express my congratulations on the very apt and relevant task of LOGOS. I must, of course, once again congratulate the entire team, including headed by Dr. Hapugoda and the team and the entire faculty. When Dr. Rohan Abevikrama invited me personally to deliver the keynote address, I accepted the invitation. I, of course, accepted the invitation willingly and without any hesitation for 3 reasons. First one, on a personal note, Rohan was my classmate. We both were at the pioneering batch of MA in TESOL at PGIE, that is the postgraduate of English, and we both were reading the research alphabet together. Although we both had learned some sort of exposure, we had some sort of exposure to research in our BA studies as well, I think we learned the proper research alphabet together at the PGIE. So it was an invitation, with all my due respect, Rohan, from a research Montessori friend. So Montessori, I'm telling you with some sort of respect and honor and out of my memory. So it will be a memorable event. And the second reason is both personal and professional. Rohan told me that the launch is to offer felicitations to Professor Vijay Singha, our guest of honor today. Professor Vijay Singha is an academic I admire a lot. As an academic, I admire a lot. Above all, for 2 reasons. One is for his innovative ideas. The other reason is his rebellious nature. I would call him a rebel really, his rebellious nature. You know, as you all know, as it is mentioned earlier also, he's an innovator in giving opportunities to students from non-A-level backgrounds to do English for their BAs. To achieve this, he rebelled against the then existing practices. much criticism was leveled against him. And so as you also know, as it is mentioned here also, the Japura Department of English and Linguistics, I mean the University of Sri Jawaharlal, where I currently work, is forever grateful to Professor Vijay Singh for being the brainchild of the establishment of the department, which was of course spearheaded by Miss Parvati Nagasundaram. Although Japura had offered English as a subject for BA studies, I know your dean is a product of that, and since its inception in the 1950s, in the early 1950s, it's because of those two great personalities, Professor Vijay Singh and Miss Parvati Nagasundaram, that the department was established as a department while offering the special degree as well in the late 1990s. So he was my teacher too. Professor Vijay Singh was my teacher too, and formally he was my teacher. I would say he is my teacher. He is forever my teacher. Even a simple dialogue over coffee means a teaching material to me. In the morning, even I had a dialogue, a chat with him at the restaurant there, and over coffee, and I learned several things from him. So he's forever my teacher. And the third reason for me to accept the invitation willingly and without hesitation is the topic given to me. You asked me to talk something about, share my thoughts and my insights about research on language studies. And I believe it's a theme that is fundamental to our very existence, especially as practitioners in language studies. So aligned with the theme, let me share my thoughts, some of my thoughts and insights with you. First on language studies, secondly on my thoughts on research. Before I begin my proper speech, of course, talking to an audience after a speech delivered by Professor Vijay Singh is not a simple task. So you have said everything, right, on the topic in different words, really. And you have put the audience to a climax point, sir. So it's a challenge to me to talk to an audience just after a talk delivered by an eminent speaker like Professor Vijay Singh. But I'll try my best. I hope that you would bear with me. Right. You know, the linguistic landscape is in a state of flux today. As you know, I know that there are many students as well here, so therefore I'm addressing you as well. So according to the 26th edition of Ethnologue, there are about 7,200 living languages today. And of them, only 4,000 have written forms. And there are only 34 writing systems. Only 34 writing systems, and Sinhala and Tamil belong to those 34, that 34 category. So we must be really proud and happy that both Sinhala and Tamil belong to that 34 writing categories. So the number of books, research, and discussions on the current status and the future of language is striking. For instance, some researchers have predicted that 90% of these languages will be dead at the end of the 21st century. Many other scholars, such as David Crystal and Claude Hedge, predict a decline in linguistic diversity in the face of modernization. There will be a decline in the differences between different languages and the ways that people communicate with each other. Some also believe in a remarkable rise in English while a decline in other European languages. So the linguistic landscape is not stable. As academics in the field of language studies, we must explore such issues. Let's revisit some of the key concerns. First, before I move on to share my thoughts about research. Mutual intelligibility is one key concern in dealing with different languages. As you know, mutual intelligibility is a situation in which two or more speakers of a language or of closely related languages can understand each other. But this idea of mutual intelligibility sometimes fails in practice. We have instances where the speakers of A can understand B, but not vice versa. The reasons are complex. Let me cite an example from Nigeria. Kalabari and Nnembe are two linguistic varieties spoken in Nigeria. Speakers of Kalabari admit that they can understand, speakers of Nnembe admit that they can understand Kalabari without any difficulties. But the speakers of Kalabari say that Nnembe is unintelligible to them. Why do Kalabari speakers say so? They consider Nnembe as less civilized or less sophisticated. They consider themselves, Kalabari speakers consider themselves as more prosperous and more civilized than Nnembe. So Nnembe is unintelligible to them, unintelligible to Kalabari speakers. Socio-political considerations trump linguistic reality. So the criterion of mutual intelligibility may not be adequate. There are Kalabari type speakers in Sri Lanka as well. We have met Sri Lankans who are happy and proud to announce their inability to understand Sinhala and Tamil, when we should be ashamed of our failure to communicate in one of the national languages. We also have noted some people humiliate the interlanguage, that is the language learner's language. Is this a consequence of the socio-political and cultural influence of the country? Or is it simply because we are not yet psychologically decolonized? To use French critic Frantz Fanon's words, are we still in the amputation stage of our national languages? Or is it because of a sense of inferiority complex about our national languages? Also, as languages change gradually over time, mutual intelligibility across distant generations may also be problematic. There's no assurance that Sinhala language spoken today will be well understood in the 22nd century. Will the language used by, for example, Sunil Shantha and Mahagamasekara be understood by the youth of today? Mutual intelligibility is also problematic with the existence of dialect continua, which may, however, not be a threat to Sri Lanka today, but it may be a threat in the future, because you know, even now we have different Tamil varieties not understood by different communities of the country. Moving on, living in a monolingual landscape will no longer be the default condition. The assumption that one language could serve all the purposes of communication is receding, except perhaps for the English speaker. If monolingualism is selected, there will be a battle of languages. That is why the term plurilingualism came into being. As you know, the capacity of all speakers to use and learn more than one language was conceptualized by creating a network for communities to supplement each other. It was initially framed in the European language policy documents by the European Commission in the mid-20s. More than simply tolerating linguistic plurilingualism, what is needed is to advocate it. That's why the concept of translanguaging emerged. Translanguaging incorporates an understanding of how different modes, including our bodies, our gestures, and our lives, add to the semiotic meaning-making repertoire that is involved in the act of communication. Some scholars publicize translanguaging as being advantageous not only for work environments, but also for cognitive development and educational practices. But to what extent is it practiced in our country? The reasons for its absence in actual context are not yet well explored, although we have 2 or 3 languages here. Let me cite a research paper published in 2020. This is by, I'm caught in Garcia and Ateng, published in 2020. I caught, it is important to keep the conceptual distinctions between plurilingualism and translanguaging at the forefront, as we develop ways of enacting them in practice, even when pedagogies may turn out to look the same. Because the theoretical stance of translanguaging brings forth and affirms dynamic multilingual realities. It offers the potential to transform minoritized communities' sense of self, that the concept of plurilingualism may not always do. These concepts may be linked to understanding national language context as well in Sri Lanka. For instance, you know, Sinhala medium school children study Tamil as a subject in schools. They study Tamil for about 10 or 11 years. The question here is, do they experience the effects of translanguaging in this country? Moving on, you all know the significance of power in English. I'm not going to give any details of the significance of English, and Professor Vijay Singh also mentioned about the significance of English. We do admit the significance of English. But let me tell you this anecdote. Perhaps this may be more important and useful for the students seated over there. One of my female students, female university students, who regularly took the bus home in the late evening after her lectures, told the entire class one day how she had escaped, let me reiterate the word escape, from sexual harassment on the bus. Whenever she traveled home at night after her lectures, she used to read English books or pretended to do so. Is English a cure for sexual harassment? Or does sexual perversion also surrender to English in Sri Lanka? Those are some of the concepts that you can explore perhaps in the future. Another concern lies with language extinction. The preservation of languages is in danger. Will the school children attending the so-called international schools be able to write in Sinhala and Tamil at the turn of the century? I told you at the beginning, Sinhala and Tamil belong to the 34 write-in systems category. So will they be able to write in Sinhala or Tamil in the future? So we currently witness the pre-living dead status of Sinhala scripts. Let me also cite another example close to us. You know the Vedda language? As it is believed, it is the language of the descendants of the Stone Age of Sri Lanka. We see the living dead status of the Vedda language. It may not be a linguistic loss, but also a demise of the socio-political cultural values of a culture, a loss of a history. Also, recent research confirms that no other discipline is affected by societal, economic, and geopolitical issues as language pedagogy is. The growing sophistication of computerized language influences the linguistic landscape, perhaps by favoring Eurocentric language pluralism. Language teachers face unprecedented challenges brought out by a globalized society, the digital era, health crisis, and migration. Learners are digitally smart today and have different language learning styles that language practitioners should value in order to remain relevant in the century and perhaps in the next century. Also, issues such as language rights, mother tongue schooling, medium of instruction in education, which was discussed in detail in the previous speech, and language policy are all associated with complex political and ideological and socio-economic factors. We need more research, practice-based research on these issues. I talk about language concerns. Now let me also pay attention to literature and digital humanities. As you know, digital humanities crosses between language departments and computer science departments. Some scholars believe that humanities and science and technology are two very different fields of knowledge. So they resort to different research methods. Some others believe that digital humanities will replace traditional humanistic research with a more scientific spirit and methodological means, thus marking another revolutionary change in the academic paradigm of the humanities. So the question is, are we ready to face such challenges as scholars do in and engage in literature studies? The rise of the genre science fiction is a typical case in point that needs our attention. Science and technology should not necessarily be opposed to literature and literary studies, but if applied correctly and adequately, technology will help the study of literature in a more scientific and empirical manner. Also, let's speak of the choice of literary texts. We usually prescribe the so-called canonical text on our syllabuses. We usually prescribe the canonical text. For our research studies also, the focus is often on such academically canonical literary text. But as you know, some texts become academically canonical many years after their publication. Perhaps booksellers, media, and readers make literary text canonical. History also plays a major role here. Ancient things have usually been proven to be valuable by history, so they become canonical. They become easily canonical text. The new texts have not been tested by history, so their value is not properly assessed. As a result, only a few books are read, while many others are put on the periphery or not read at all. How can we face the rise of literary text? As the Italian critic and theorist Franco Moratti says, many books are slaughtered. As you know, Moratti put forward the concept of distant reading as a solution to this. In 2007, Moratti proposes the concept of distant reading, where distance, I quote, is a condition of knowledge. It allows you to focus on units that are much smaller or much larger than the text. Devices, themes, tropes, or genres and systems, unquote. Then as Moratti believes, literary texts will not be slaughtered. Instead, readers engage with them distantly. So our task is to ask whether distant reading is useful for us to face the challenges, especially in relation to literary studies. I have spoken thus far of some concerns related to language studies. Let me now move on to research before I conclude my speech. If we are to face such challenges in literature and linguistic and literature complexities, we undoubtedly need research. We need to be engaged in more and more research and publication. Research publications are usually indicators of research activities and development, as highlighted in the previous speech as well as by in the Vice Chancellor's speech as well. I'm happy to hear that the university, the faculty has 3 journals or 3 journal publications now. But I'm not going to warn you of bad news. We need to be more vigilant of our own research and must be more concerned about our incentives for research. As you are well aware, the aim of measuring our research productivity has given rise to quantitative performance metrics. Research productivity of academics is measured through the number of publications, the number of citations, the high H-index value, the impact factor of journals, and so on. These types of quantitative measurements seem to dominate the professional life of academics. Promotions, senior level recruitments, and awards are often decided by such metrics. True, we need an objective mechanism. But it's high time for us to ask if such systems of quantitative measurements are the same as achieving socio-culturally, economically, academically relevant and impactful research effects. Let me quote this. Let me quote Edwards and Roy, and in a paper in 2016, published in 2016, I quote, "Scientific output as measured by cited work has doubled every 9 years since about World War II, producing busier academics, shorter and less comprehensive papers, and a change in climate from publish or perish to funding or famine." Questions have been raised about how sustainable this exponential increase in knowledge industry is. Recent exposés have revealed schemes by journals to manipulate impact factors. The use of p-packing. P-packing is the misuse of data analysis to find patterns in the analysis. The use of p-packing, rigging of the peer review process itself, and over-citation. Unquote. It's true that quantitative metrics may offer an objective means of assessing research productivity relative to subjective measurements. But as such subjective measurements have become a target, they are likely to be counterproductive as well. Let me also tell you another incident, which is a very personal incident which happened to me recently. This is about a first-year university student doing English at a reputed state-run university in Sri Lanka. Within brackets, not the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. And her mother. This is about that first-year university students studying English at a particular reputed state-run university in Sri Lanka, and her mother. This mother is a university academic, a senior lecturer. The mother recently met me. She requested me to review a research paper written by her daughter. Mind you, studying in the first semester, first semester, doing English as a subject. I was surprised because I know that first-year students have usually not been taught head or tail of research in the first year. The mother said, let me first say it in Sinhala, as I remember. දුව අවුට් වෙනකොටම papers 10ක් 15ක් දාලා තියා ගන්න ඕනේ. අඩු ගානේ abstract විදිහට. ඒකයි මිස් මට මේ උදව් කරලා දෙන්නකෝ. So the mother said it's good to have several research papers published, at least as abstracts, before the daughter is graduated. This proves the motive of most people, even some academics. The motive is merely to have papers published. Let me continue. As with any human being, academics also easily respond to incentives. So we have to reconsider such incentives and the validity, reliability, and trustworthiness of such incentives. Much is revealed in recent studies about the growing perverse incentives in academia in the world. A significant difference is identified between the incentive, the intended effect, and the actual effect. So, the incentive, the intended effect, and the actual effect. Let me once again quote from a tabulated document. It's given in a table, really. The table gives you different ideas and quoted different ideas. Let me quote just 2 examples from the table. This is also by Edward and Roy. When the researchers are rewarded for the increased number of publications as the incentive, the intended effect is to improve research productivity and to provide a means of evaluating performance. But the actual effect, I caught, these are exact words, is an avalanche of substandard, incremental papers and poor methods, an increase in the false discovery rates, and reduced quality of peer review. This one example from that tabulated document. And let me just give another example also. When the researchers are rewarded for the number of citations, the intended effect is quality work that influences others. But the actual effect is extended reference list to inflate citations. So, there are several other examples have been given and quoted there from actual papers and by referring to the actual papers. So we also have to conceptualize means to minimize the short-term and long-term effects of perverse incentives. If such incentives are associated with socio-economic concerns, a macro-level policy change is required, perhaps with the help of the UGC or other hierarchical authorities. But if they need only in-house editions, it is time to reassess them within the universities. Therefore, it is necessary to understand the difference between quality versus quantity in research, the maintenance of the balance between the two, or the achievement of the two. We should not focus on quantity at the expense of quality, or we should not overstate output versus outcomes. Optimum productivity may lie somewhere in between, with fewer perverse incentives, but whether we can achieve in the current context is also a problem as long as individuals as well as the authoritative figures consider that getting into the top category is a life or death matter. As far as we consider the individuals as well as the organizations or the authorities, if they consider that getting into the higher category, having many citations, is a life or death matter. As far as we consider it that in that way, that will be a problem. And research incentives also relate to the nature of the university establishment. You know, there are research-oriented universities in developed countries. In such research-oriented developed universities, authorities may insist on research output than teaching responsibilities. But we don't have that luxury of selecting one out of the two in Sri Lanka. We do have to achieve both research-oriented outcomes and teaching-oriented outcomes. This is, of course, a challenge for us. Also, as academics, we know we now work in a fast-changing environment that requires all of us to be excellent at teaching, excellent at research, excellent at other administrative matters, excellent at making students employable, and excellent at documentation such as collecting and compiling documents for program review requirements demanded by the IMF and other World Bank requirements, etc. So in such context, engaging in pedagogical based research may be less complex and may offer fewer problems and be productive for language concerns and language studies. Moving on to the end, the research questions set out by the researchers, especially those who engage in language studies over the past centuries, are constantly being approached from new angles and reformulated into new lines of inquiry. Along with the challenges, research in the 21st century will undoubtedly bring increased opportunities for understanding human language and how it interacts with both culture and cognition in our ever-changing world. As researchers on language studies and literature, we should address these issues insightfully and productively and offer a foundation for further and solid discussion on these types of timely matters. We look forward to that dialogue via Logos. Let me end my speech with a reference to Professor Vijay Singha once again. Sir, 2 months ago in March, you were at Japura, delivering a keynote address reminding us of John Masefield's book, The Box of Delights. You explain how it allows one to travel swiftly and to make oneself very small, and how its magical properties are needed even for academics to do better. In this sense, we need out-of-the-box ideas and use those magical properties to maintain the balance between quality and quantity for development purposes. I wish Logos all the best, and thank you very much for your attention.
Let me sincerely thank Professor Chitra Jayatilaka for delivering the keynote address. It's time for us to witness yet another memorable event in today's program, the launch of Logos in print. To mark the occasion, I would like to welcome Dr. Mahesh Hapugoda, Editor-in-Chief of Logos, on stage. I hereby invite Dr. Hapugoda to distribute copies of Logos to the following dignitaries. To accept the first copy of the journal, I would like to welcome Senior Professor Udayaratnayaka, the Chief Guest and the Vice Chancellor of Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka. And I would also like to welcome the guest of honor, Professor Rajiv Vijay Singha, to accept another copy of Logos. I would also like to warmly welcome the keynote speaker, Professor Chitra Jayatilaka, to accept a copy of Logos. And this invitation is for Dr. Sampath Fernando, Dean, Faculty of Social Sciences and Languages, to accept a copy as well. Thank you, sir. I hereby invite Ms. Samadhi and Ms. Sanduni to distribute copies of logos among all the deans and directors who are present here today. Thank you. I'm immensely grateful to the guest of honor and keynote speaker for taking time off their busy schedule. As an indication of our gratitude, we've arranged tokens of appreciation, so kindly accept them. In order to present the letters of appreciation, let me welcome Senior Professor Udayaratnayaka, the Vice Chancellor of Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, on stage. Now, I would like to welcome the guest of honor, Emeritus Professor Rajiv Vijay Singha, to accept his letter of appreciation. Please remain on stage, sir. I hereby warmly invite the keynote speaker, Professor Chitra Jayatilaka, to accept her letter of appreciation. Kindly remain on stage, sir. This kind invitation is for Dr. Rohana Abevikrama, Head of the Department of Languages, to kindly hand over the tokens of appreciation to the Vice Chancellor. I would like to invite the guest of honor, Emeritus Professor Rajiv Vijay Singha, to kindly accept his token of appreciation. I would also like to invite the keynote speaker, Professor Chitra Jayatilaka, on stage to accept her token of appreciation. Thank you all for your assistance. As the formalities of today's event come to an end, it's time for us to recall everyone who contributed to making this event a success. To deliver the vote of thanks, please welcome Dr. Noel Dasanayaka, Managing Editor of LOGOS.
The chief guest, guest of honor, the keynote speaker, and my dear ladies and gentlemen. As a managing editor of LOGOS, it is my duty to deliver the vote of thanks. As you all know, it was after a long and tiring journey that you witnessed the birth of LOGOS today. And this would not have been a success without the support of many people. First of all, let me thank Senior Professor Uday Ratnayaka, the Vice Chancellor of Sabaragamuwa University of Sri Lanka, for his immense support in this effort. We would not have realized the dream of Logos without your support. Secondly, let us extend our heartfelt gratitude to the guest of honor, Emeritus Professor Rajiva Vijayasinghe, for gracing this occasion today. Your expertise has always been a blessing to our department, to our university, and to the country at large. We also would like to extend our gratitude to Professor Chitra Jayatilaka for joining us today as the keynote speaker. Dear ma'am, we are graced by your presence. We would also like to thank the Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences and Languages, Dr. Sampath Fernando, who has been extending his support throughout this effort. And also, we cannot forget the key figure behind this strenuous task, Dr. Mahesh Hapukoda, the editor-in-chief of Logos. It is in fact his vision, guidance, and effort that brought the journal to this level. Next, I would like to thank Dr. Rohan Abbevikrama, the head of the Department of Languages, who has always been guiding, assisting in every way possible to make this whole event a success. And I take this moment to thank all the academic staff members of the Department of Languages who have been supporting us in various ways. I would also like to thank the Director of the OTS Office, ELTA LC Coordinator, Mr. Mahinda Patirana, and the AHEAD team for providing financial assistance for the journal. I would also like to extend our sincere gratitude to Professor Manoj Aryaratna and Professor HMS Priyanath, who has always been guiding and assisting us in many ways. Next, I would like to thank the reviewers of the articles, whose service has been invaluable in uplifting the standards of the articles. And I also take this moment to thank the editorial board and the editorial advisory board for their invaluable assistance in this task. And special thanks to Professor Hinuduma Sunil Senevi, who has been assisting us throughout this process, especially in terms of printing and publishing. Our thanks to Mrs. Yashoda Chandrasekhara, the Assistant Registrar of the Faculty of Social Sciences and Languages, who has given us support as always in many ways. And I would like to take this opportunity to specially thank our dear student, Ishan Randika, who has been working round the clock to develop this wonderful website of Logos. He has actually been engaging in this work while continuing his studies. And also I take this moment to thank Mr. Neville Ratnayaka, the Director of the Computer Center, and his team for assisting us in getting the website up and running. And now thanks to the authors of the articles for publishing their valuable research findings in our journal. The technical staff, the staff of the audio-visual unit, non-academic staff members, and all others who have supported in this event in various ways, thank you very much. And also special thanks to the Dean of the Faculty of Geomatics for providing us this auditorium for the event. And our dear Ms. Sajani, who hosted this event today, and Ms. Maxworth, thank you very much for your efforts. And last, I would like to thank all the deans, registrar, the librarian, Bursa, and all other academic staff members, administrative staff members, and my dear students for joining with us today. I sincerely apologize if I missed any name in my speech. Thank you.
With this, we mark the end of today's proceedings. My heartfelt wishes go out to those who contributed to this good cause and to all authors who contributed to the journal with their innovative research findings. Thank you all for attending this memorable occasion. To mark the conclusion of the event, please rise for the university song.
Sabaragamuwa sarasariyai, Sabaragamuwa sarasariyai. ගමනල වැව පිපි නෙළුම් නෙලාගෙන ගිරිකුළු අන රද මතින් ගලා යන ජීවිතයේ කඳු මුදුන් සොයාගෙන ආගල කන්ද නගින්නේ ආගල කන්ද නගින්නේ සිරිපා පහනින් එළිය ලබාගෙන මනරම් විදුනන අකුරු දරාගෙන කළුගම් පතුලේ රුවන් සොයාගෙන උඩුගම් බලා දෙන්නේ උඩුගම් බලා දෙන්නේ කගගින් රුදු අඳුර නසාගෙන ඔබෙත් මගෙත් හීනය කලලිවන දිනය උදාවන්නේ දිනය උදාවන්නේ මේ ඔබේ සවියයි මේ මගේ සවියයි සබරගමුව සරසවියයි Sabaragamuwa sarasaviyai
Please, can I have your attention for one more time? Before we part ways, refreshment has been arranged for